Okay, wonderful. Welcome to our Getting Started with Polling at McGill webinar. My name is Adam Finkelstein. I'm the Associate Director for Learning Environments here at Teaching and Learning Services. And I'm here with my colleague, Jasmine Parent, who's one of our crack learning technology consultants who knows everything there is to know about polling. We're going to be working with you today to talk about engaging your students with polling at McGill and what you can do with polling and how it can really level up kind of the types of live sessions that you might do with your students as we go forward. So without further ado, the first thing we want to do is we want to start this out with a poll, because that's exactly what we want to get going on. So if you have been able to log in with polling, and again, if you haven't seen that instructions, I put them again in the chat. I'm going to mcgill.ca/polling and putting in the join the polling session, and join with McGill polling, all one word, and you will be able to see this particular question. Now, this is a ranking question, which means that you can answer in an order of 1, 2, and 3 as to what you would do first, second, and third. So why doesn't everybody answer right now, and we'll see how we can get those responses up. We have about 14 or 13 people here in the session, so we want to make sure we get to about 10 before we cut everything off. You'll see on the top right of the screen, it's keeping track of the participants of who is responding. Of course, my eyes are a little bit weak at the moment, and it's very small. So Jasmine, what are we at the moment?
We only have 2 right now.
All right, so that means you guys have to get to work and get some responses coming in here.
There we go, 4.
There we go. Okay, all right. Now we're starting to get some responses. So again, just like you might do with your students, you might need a little swift kick to get them to log in and engage there and get some answers in. Once we get to the answers to a certain point, we'll stop and move forward. But I think you're getting a little bit of a sense of what polling is about, which is basically asking a question embedded within PowerPoint as you move forward, and live and on the fly, get those answers, collate all those answers, and we will be able to display those answers shortly. So what are we at now, Jasmine?
Yeah, we're still at 4.
4. Oh my goodness. Well, we need to wait a second here and make sure everybody's able to connect in. If you're having any trouble, post something in the chat and we'll do our best. Otherwise, make sure you go to mcgill.ca/polling, join the session, join with McGill polling, make sure you sign in, and you'll get to the first question that you see here, and it'll display on the screen, and you'll be able to answer right there. So we'll give you a few more minutes or not even a few minutes. We'll give you about 15 to 20, 25 more seconds or so before we continue. But if anybody's having some difficulty, just let us know, and we'll do one more check, and then we'll move forward. All right, so Jasmine, where are we now? We're at, yeah, so the ID, Paula, is McGill polling, all one word. Yep, exactly, Ashish. The McGill polling is going to come from a website or from an app. You can use it on your phone. You can actually log in from your phone as well. It will be different from Zoom. It is in a different site that you need to go to. So the mcgill.ca/polling is the site that you'll actually have to go to be able to join the session and then answer. Once you do that login once, you're good for the entire time. So you only have to do this setup once. And in fact, your students can actually, if they know what to do, have it all ready to go before they come to class. So you can actually just start after you do it once or twice. You absolutely can use a phone or tablet. So just go to the website on your phone if you want as well. That's possible, or on your tablet. Okay, so how many we got so far, Jasmine?
We have 8 now.
Okay, so we're going to close it at 8, and those of you that haven't responded yet, don't worry. We're gonna give you. There's gonna be lots of opportunities. So right now, I think we've got an example of the responses. Yes, the answers are submitted automatically. So in other words, once you click the option, the answer is submitted. You can, of course, as a student, change your answer as many times as you want before the polling closes. When the polling closes, everything's done, we display the responses. So here we go with the responses. Most people are saying they open and play around, and others read the manuals, which is great because both of those are primary options for you. Okay, so let's keep continuing here. What I want to do is just go over 2 slides and then hand it over to Jasmine to go over to some more details. What we're going to want to do with you today is explore how polling can be used to increase student engagement, specifically how you can get students involved and working with you and engaging more than just simply passively listening as part of the sessions, the live sessions that you might do. The second is we really want you to participate and try experimenting with these questions as a student, and you're going to try a whole bunch of different questions beyond just multiple choice as we're going to go forward. And last is identify the types of questions and the feedback that you can collect in that process. Okay, so let's look at the next piece, which is really the 3 key benefits. And the first benefit here is really the idea that polling is used to engage and get people interested and active within the sessions that you're doing. Polling is used for live interactions. It's not something you can do in a flexible way where you're going to post it and people respond to later. It's meant for live, in-person, quote unquote, in a session, being able to ask questions and get responses from students, summarize them, and look at them in graphs that are summarized. So it's one of those things that can be used really to engage students right off the bat and get them excited and involved in the class. The second is that it's really great for active learning. So you can use polling in lots of different ways. It can be used for knowledge checks to make sure, hey, I just talked about this idea for 10 minutes. Let's just make sure that you really understood what I was saying. I'm going to ask you a question you need to answer. It can be used as part of an activity where you might actually have students working together and then respond. You might have students work on a problem and then respond. So it allows you to do a lot of interactive kind of active learning scenarios in an online environment that you may not have been able to do or you can't do without a software like this. And it's very similar to what you might do in a classroom. And what's really great about polling is that if you use Polling at McGill in a classroom last year, it's basically the same thing that you would do online. It's the same software, same process, same everything. So the last thing, of course, is feedback. And this goes to Alexander's question, is that what's really great about polling is everybody signs in with their McGill IDs to be able to answer and respond. You can have anonymous questions, but by default, it's set up to know who's answered what. So in the session that you're doing, and when you're displaying the graphs, it's doing summaries of everybody's responses. But one of the great things about polling, which is what sets it apart from any other type of question and answer, including things in Zoom that you can do, is you actually can run reports and get ideas of who's responded to what individually and actually synchronize that with my courses, so you can actually connect it to your grade book if you wish to use something like polling as part of participation. Now, we want to keep that in mind that, this is a live session scenario. If a student is not there, they can't participate. It's something to keep in mind if you're going to be concerned about that. And it's something to be worried about as well, depending on what time zones your students are in. And second of all, to think about is that, the maximum allowed percentage is around 10%, or is 10%. If you want to use something like participation in a live classroom. But it's something to keep in mind and be aware that you might want to think of alternative mechanisms for people to answer some questions if they were not able to attend that live scenario. Okay, so let's continue on from here, and I'm going to pass it to Jasmine to be able to talk about how we can use polling at McGill.
Thank you, Adam. So let's talk about how we can use Polling at McGill to increase engagement in your course. So when we compare Polling at McGill to the Zoom polling feature, we can see that Polling at McGill is a more sophisticated polling system. So Zoom is limited to using only multiple choice questions, while Polling at McGill has a variety of questions, in which we're going to explore in a moment. The reporting in polling is quite basic, which is just a simple Excel spreadsheet, while Polling at McGill, with Polling at McGill, you can produce much more sophisticated reporting and analysis that includes information on performance and participation. Polling at McGill integrates with PowerPoint to allow you to add questions directly into your presentation, so that when you progress through your lecture, as we saw at the beginning of this webinar, the questions appear quite seamlessly on the screen. Polling at McGill also has an integration with my courses, where it pulls your class list into the platform, so that when students join your session in your lecture, Polling at McGill will link their account to their name found in your class list. This also creates an opportunity to include a grade for participation, which you can link to your grade book in my courses. And finally, when you give a poll with Polling at McGill, the poll and the results are captured in the lecture recording. This is not the case for Zoom. So when you record your lecture using the lecture recording system, the Polling at McGill polls, which are integrated in your PowerPoint, will be captured in that recording. If you give a poll through Zoom, that will not be shown in the lecture recording. So it's not to say that Polling at McGill is necessarily better than Zoom. Zoom polling does have its place, and it's really great for very quick engagement opportunities within a live lecture. But Polling at McGill is a really more sophisticated and powerful tool to use for different types of engagement and interaction opportunities. So at McGill, we use a web-based polling system called Turning Point. So when I say Polling at McGill or Turning Point, I'm actually talking about the same thing. Polling at McGill is McGill's branding to Turning Point Technologies. So this is the Turning Point interface when you open the application onto your computer once you have it downloaded and installed. We're going to be focusing on Turning Point to produce polling questions within PowerPoint. So what happens is during a class, students respond to a live PowerPoint presentation slide using their personal device. So they can use their smartphone, their tablet, or their laptop. With live polling in PowerPoint, the results are shown in real time. This is really great for getting very instant feedback, checking your participants' knowledge, your students' knowledge, having them practice questions, and giving everybody a voice. So even in really large lectures, large classes, it's a way to allow all students to participate in answering a question that you ask. Anywhere polling, you can see in the middle here, is the same idea as the PowerPoint polling, but can be used with different applications. So if you do want to use Anywhere polling, if you don't use PowerPoint, we're going to be giving more resources on that later that you can check out. So there are a variety of ways in which you can use polling in your class to increase active participation of students to support learning. So you can use polling to orient your students. So get to know them or orient them to your subject. You can use polling to inform your students or yourself of their learning by giving them knowledge checks throughout your lecture. You can also use it for interactive purposes, which can be which will be modeled later in this presentation. And finally, you can use polling to give students an opportunity for reflection. So perhaps midway through a course or at the end of a course as a wrap-up activity. There are a few things to consider when using polling. So first is the question type. Turning Point has quite a few choices when it comes to question types. So you might want to think about if you want to use predefined questions with predefined choices like multiple choice or priority ranking or Likert scales. Do you want to use perhaps open response type questions where students have to type in their answers, so like short answers, long answers, or word clouds? And finally, you can have interactive questions, which allows students to select a place on an image to respond to a question. We're going to be modeling all of these types of question types throughout the presentation. You'll also want to consider when you want to ask your questions. So here's an example of how to time polling in your course. So this is a recommendation of how you might want to structure your content and your polling. This is actually called the 10-2 strategy, where you have 10 minutes of lecturing and then 2 minutes of interaction. So you give 10 minutes of sharing your content and then 2 minutes for them to perhaps answer a polling question, followed by another 10 minutes and then 2 minutes to either ask a new question or potentially re-poll the question that you asked in the first place, and to see if maybe their answers changed based on the new information they received. There are then different ways in which you can use polling in your lecture. So you might want to think about, do you want your question to be answered individually, or do you want to pair it with an active learning strategy like think, pair, share, where you'll have your students discuss their responses with each other and then answer a question. You can also choose to display your results during a poll, after a poll, or not at all. And finally, you can choose to set your responses to be anonymous. So this might be interesting if you are asking more sensitive type questions that students would prefer to answer anonymously. And of course, you can also use identified type questions to track participation and attendance. So we're going to go through different types of questions that are available in Polling at McGill and have you participate in answering the questions on your own device. So before we move on, I just want to remind you, in order to participate, you don't have to. You have to go to mcgill.ca/polling, join the polling session, you can see here, and it's going to ask you to log in with your credentials. And this screen will pop up asking you to join the session ID. And this is where you'd put the session ID, which is McGill polling in, and then join the session. If there is not a question that on the screen, your screen is going to be blank, but as soon as the poll opens, as soon as a question does come up and the poll opens, the question will then appear on your screen. So don't be alarmed if you join and you don't see anything yet. So the first way that I mentioned that we can use polling is to orient your students to your course and get to know them. So this is a really great way, an easy way to build a sense of community, especially in your remote course. These questions can be used to get a sense of who your students are, their backgrounds, perhaps what year they're in, their experience, etc. It also allows students an opportunity to get to know their classmates. So I think it's important to note that this is an opportunity, especially in this context, to check in with your students and practice building empathy. So there's going to be students that are going to feel stressed out during these times. Most of them have never taken an online course before, and it's not their choice that they're doing so now. And especially for first-year students, it isn't exactly an ideal way to start university. So you could use polling as for purposes to build a relationship and build rapport with your students. So just asking them how they're feeling might be a nice way to start off a course or a class, just to make them feel a little more comfortable. So I'm going to ask you a polling question here, and the poll is open, about your experience using polling. So have you ever used polling, clickers, or another student response system before? So you either have as an instructor, as a participant, as both, or you have never used it before. So I can see here up in the right-hand corner, the poll is open, and I can see that the responses are coming in. So I have 6, 7, 8, and it's climbing. You'll kind of get a sense each class how many people are there and how many people are participating when the responses sort of level off in their climb. And then that'll give you an idea if you have multiple questions throughout your presentation, kind of where to stop and close the poll. So I'll give it another maybe 10 seconds. We only have 17 people today and we have 10 responses already. So another few seconds. 10 is generally, it sounds pretty good. And I'll close it. And you can see here that of all the responses, nobody, 90% have never used it before, and 10% have used it as an instructor and as a participant. So one person has used it as both, and 9 of you have never used it. So then we're really glad you're here and taking this so you can learn how to use it in your courses. I'm going to ask you another question. Are you planning on using Polling at McGill in your remote course this fall? Yes, no, or you don't know yet. So we're going up to 8. I'll let it hit 10 and then I'll close it. So 9 and 10. So yes, 70% of you are and 30% of you don't know yet. Hopefully we can convince you, and none of you said no. So that's that makes sense, but that's good to hear. So this following slide is what we call a demographic comparison. So it is comparing what your experience level is. So the first question that I asked you with the second question, which was if you're planning on using the tool or not. So this is something that you can insert into your slides as well and do with your students. You might want to ask them a demographic question at the beginning of the lecture. It could be, I don't know what year they're in, and then use it to compare their results in subsequent questions during the lecture. And you can do this more than once. So here we can see that the demographic here is your experience level. And then when I compare it to your plans to use polling, so those of you who, it always takes me a second to orient myself with these types of comparisons. So for those of you who are, have used it as an instructor and as a participant, you are 100% planning on using it in your course. And those of you who have never used it, it's kind of split between whether you're planning on using it or you don't know yet. So Adam, do you want to add anything here to this slide?
No, I think that's great. I think one of the great things about demographic comparisons is you can set up a group at the beginning. Could be even things like different TA groups, could be things like gender groups, could be things like experience levels, and then compare it to every single question you might want to ask afterwards and look at how different groups are answering differently. And it's a really interesting way of connecting types of questions with the groups that you have and look at crosstabs of data. So I think, again, a wonderful sort of tool that you have at your disposal for your courses.
Yeah, thanks. And it seems like an advanced feature than a just getting started type feature, but it's actually not very difficult to set up. And we're just wanting to give you an idea of what's possible when using Polling McGill. So the next type of question you can use for polling can be used to inform your students by checking their understanding in order to provide feedback or clarify concepts. So you can check students' understanding on what you've taught and perhaps provide opportunities for practice, or you can get a sense of what their knowledge is on a topic before you teach it. So in the next slide, I have what is called a hotspot question. So a hotspot question is an image in which you can interact with by clicking directly onto the image. So the question here is, where is the Indian Ocean? And I have a map. So you can click on the map where you think the Indian Ocean is. And it's going to record those responses so that when I close the poll and show you the responses, you'll be able to see where people clicked and where the correct response is. So you'll just have to click directly on the screen. Keep in mind that you can change your response until I close the poll. So if you click somewhere and you make a mistake, you can just click somewhere else. And it'll save the last point that you touched. So we have 6 responses here, 8, 9, and 10. So I'll close the poll. And we can see here that the green pins are those who got it correct. I have this square here that I had indicated when I created the slide what the correct answer is. Unfortunately, they give you very rigid shapes, so I couldn't really outline the whole Indian Ocean, but did I lose my responses? There we go. And those who clicked outside of the correct responses that I indicated will have little red pinpoints. So it's not always perfect. Like I know this person here probably did get it correct, but it just wasn't in the square that I indicated. That's fine. Not a big deal, but it just shows you that people can interact and you'll be able to see where they dropped their so-called pins. So a type of question like this, a hotspot, might be useful or interesting for, like, let's say an anatomy course. If you had students identify where certain parts of the body are, where certain bones are, they can just click directly onto the image and answer your question. So moving on, you can also design questions to promote peer-to-peer interaction and then use it as a sort of springboard for activity. So for example, I'm going to ask you a question here. What is the tallest point on Earth? And I'm going to give you just a few seconds to respond. Just kind of answer what your initial reaction is. Don't think about it too much. And I'm going to close the poll and we're going to do a little activity. So there's my 11, 12. Oh, more people are logged in. That's awesome. So I'll close the poll. Most of you have said Mount Everest. A few of you said Mauna Kea and Mount Kilimanjaro. Okay, so here is an opportunity where I could use an active learning strategy called Think, Pair, Share. So I have you answer a question and then in theory, I could break you out into groups. I could break you out into breakout rooms on Zoom and have you discuss the question and what your response was. After a few moments of discussion, I could bring you back in and ask you the question again. Now, because we don't have a ton of time in a 30-minute webinar, I'm just going to ask you to reflect on the question in the chat. So just write perhaps what the tallest point on Earth means to you. So is it the tallest point above sea level? Why did you answer the question the way you did? What was your rationale? Was it above, below sea level, perhaps from the Earth's center? So we'll get a very quick discussion going. How do you define tallest? I'm gonna give it a few seconds because we don't have a ton of time. So above sea level, usually in previous webinars that we did, that was the most common response. People usually answer considering what a tallest point is above sea level. So yeah, so we have a few answers coming in that are the same, agreed. So then I'm gonna ask you the question again. And let's say you had a discussion, perhaps somebody brought up a point that tallest point could actually mean from the Earth's center. So I'm gonna re-poll this question again. And see what your responses are and see if the responses have potentially changed. So the poll is open, the responses are going up. We have 10, so I'm gonna close it now. They changed a little bit. But instead of trying to remember what the answer responses were to the question I had asked in the first place, I've inserted a slide here that's called a comparison slide. So sometimes it just takes a few seconds to load, but there we go. We can see the answers of the first slide. 83% of you said Mount Everest, 75% answered it in the second time that I answered the questions, and things changed a little bit. So I don't have a correct answer for you today. That really wasn't the point. It depends on how you consider, where you consider your starting point is for a tallest mountain. All of these mountains by someone are considered the highest point, just depends on how you measure highest point. So here you can see it's called a comparative link between the two questions, and it can be used at any point to display the results from two separate slides onto one slide. So rather than having to move back and forth between those two questions and those two responses, we have it right here. We can see how the answers have changed after I presented you with more information or you've had time to discuss. So the next and final type of question that you can ask to get your students to reflect on their learning and provide feedback on your course and teaching. So this is a nice way to get your students' perspective on a course, how they might be feeling about their learning, maybe reflect on their understanding of the content. So for example, we're going to do a very theoretically 1 minute reflection here. It's going to be about 15 seconds to 30-second reflection here, but I want you to identify one benefit you see with using polling in your course. So this type of question is called a word cloud, which you will see the results for in a moment. So a word cloud is going to take the most commonly answered words and make a sort of collage with the more frequently used words and more frequently answered words to appear bigger and more central in the so-called word collage. So I'll give you a few seconds. You don't have to write full sentences. You can just write a word. And when I close the poll, you can see here the collage of words. Interactive and engagement are the most commonly answered words, which is usually the responses we get in previous webinars, and that's absolutely what Polling McGill can do for your course, increase interaction and increase engagement. So we're going to talk a little bit briefly, very briefly, about how to get started with Turning Point. So first things first, you will want to register your account at mcgill.ca/polling. We have step-by-step instructions here on how to get started with registering and downloading the software. Once you have it set up and installed, you open Turning Point and your PowerPoint. you will see a tab here that appears that says Turning Point, in which you can use to create your questions. So to create a question, it's just a matter of clicking New and then selecting the question type that you want. It's going to insert a slide with that question type, and you just type in the question and the responses that you want to use. We also have a pane over here, which you can select different types of settings for that particular question. So I encourage you, once you have it downloaded and installed, to explore a little bit before creating questions in your lecture slides. Adam's going to be sharing some resources in the chat in which you can read or watch to get you started with this. Some notes on some things you'll want to do before the semester starts. So this includes registering, that's the first step, registering your account and downloading Turning Point onto your hard drive, installing it and opening it with PowerPoint to create your questions. We highly recommend that you practice running a session or two before you actually run it for the first time in your class. You can run a session and practice with yourself using your phone, your mobile device, or a tablet, or you can have anyone from McGill join your session and answer polling questions as well. So if you have a TA, it might be helpful to have them join the session and you actually go through the slides with them and have them answer and practice using the system, testing it out. And finally, you'll want to inform your students that you're going to be using polling in your course. So students can go to mcgill.ca/polling also, where you went to register, and follow the instructions that are titled Getting Started for Students. We have a sample course outline statement there on that site, which you can include in your syllabus concerning polling, which you can check out, or I think we're going to be sharing in the chat as well. So here are some very high-level steps and tips I want to mention for running a session itself. So first, you must open Turning Point before you open your PowerPoint. So this is very important. You won't be able to add Turning Point slides if you don't launch PowerPoint through the Turning Point app. You must then create a session ID, which is going to be unique to your course. So this is how students are going to join your session. You can choose one, as I did for this particular session, which was McGill Polling. That was a session ID that I chose. You can do so as well and choose whatever you want, or you can have Turning Point randomize a session ID for you. You also have the option of displaying the session ID on your screen so that students can see it and join throughout the class if they're showing up a little bit late or whatnot. Once you have your session ID, you can run your session and then you start your presentation as you would any other presentation. You put your PowerPoint into presentation mode. When you're giving a lecture and you arrive to a Turning Point slide, sometimes the polls open automatically, like it did in my case. This is usually the case for PCs, but Macs, you sometimes have to actually manually open a poll. So it will, the Turning Point slide, the question will show up, but the poll will be closed, and you'll have to just click a little green button. I think it looks like a play button to open your poll so that students will then be able to interact with it. And finally, after your class is done, if you're interested in viewing the results, this is where you're actually going to be able to see who responded to what. You must save your session. So you're going to be prompted to do so if you try to close PowerPoint. But just keep in mind, if by reflex you click no and your session doesn't save, you won't actually be able to view the reports and the results of that particular session and of the responses that your students had. So we have a lot more detailed resources to get you started, and some of the links that we will share in the chat and that we have on our website. I just wanted to give you a very high level overview of what you might expect for running a session. And finally, once you've ran a session and you have results, what can you do with the results? So you can track participation, which is something that you can set up within Turning Point. Since you can link Turning Point to your course in My Courses, you can then upload participation points directly to your gradebook in My Courses. Second, the results might be helpful for you to identify problem areas. So you can take a closer look at them after your lecture, perhaps see where students might have been having misunderstandings, which you can then clarify in the next lecture. And finally, as I said previously, you can use it to collect feedback and check in with your students. So you can insert, it's a written response or a long answer type question that's anonymous. And ask students to write a little bit about maybe how they're feeling in the course, kind of like what we did for the word cloud, but we would have a different question type. you can use different active learning strategies for this. So 1-minute reflection, where students would write a response to a question. The responses, keep in mind, are not displayed on the screen for a long answer kind of question. They're logged in your session or your reports, which you can take a look at afterwards when the lecture is over. So I'll pass it back to you, Adam.
Yeah, so another great idea with that long answer is that the long answer doesn't display live, but you collect it live. So another great strategy is using it for muddiest point. So at the end of the class, if you've got that, hey, are there any other things that you find confusing? You can have students right there, write it out live. And then it's captured and you can look at that data afterwards. So I think, today we went over this sort of a lot of the different areas about how useful this can be for your teaching in the fall and actually in general. And one of the nice things about using polling is that even if you're doing all of this preparation for something that you might be doing in a remote teaching scenario, you can easily switch it to a classroom scenario because everything you're doing is inside PowerPoint that you can do live in a face-to-face class as much as you do live in a remote teaching scenario. So it's great in that it's something that you can continue to develop and work on beyond just the fall semester. So again, using it for engagement, getting students involved, interacting, and this is a great example of getting everybody doing something in a session. It's hard to sort of tune out and do something else when you're actually actively asked to answer questions in the scenario. And then of course the active learning strategies, many of which we've discussed today, using it with Muddiest Point, using it with a Think, Pair, Share, etc. And last, being able to get feedback. And we talked about that kind of feedback. There's a whole reporting side where you can actually, from inside Turning Point, run reports on everything that students have answered over the entire term or over the entire classes, and synchronize that with your gradebook in my courses if you like as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for feedback live and feedback after the fact of students being able to respond. So we just want to continue to remind you that there, of course, are lots of other sessions besides this one. All of the recordings for this will be available online, as well as all of our other webinars that we've done. We're actually coming to the tail end of all of our webinars. So Jasmine, if you go to the next slide there, we're at kind of the end of all of the sessions. I think there's one or two more that we're going to be doing this week, and that's about it. But you're going to be able to access all of those recordings online of all of the sessions for planning, implementation, and all the areas that you see there. And so with that, we wanted to offer it up to you to the questions in the chat of what else are you like to know? What other questions do you have? We've got a couple of minutes for sure that we can answer. And I'll just jump over to the chat. There's at least a few here. About will it work when we convert our PowerPoints to PDFs uploaded? Francis, I think that what will work, I guess the question is, what do you mean work? And that if you actually take your PowerPoint and turn it into a PDF after your session, it will retain all of the slides and all of the data that's in it. So you can actually have a capture of what's happened in a display of all the slides. But again, Polling at McGill is designed to be done live. So when it's live, afterwards, you're just going to see the results. You're not going to see you're not going to be able to actually answer the poll or anything like that online. Can you exit Turning Point and go back to results at a later time? Yes, once you've captured the data, you capture the data and you actually have it on your computer and you can keep it through for all the sessions, for all the classes, all the way through the entire term.
Mm-hmm. And just about exiting Turning Point. So you can save your sessions and all of the data within Turning Point and actually go back and look at the reports, but the PowerPoint itself will save the data as well. And let's say if you want to reuse the same PowerPoint slide deck with those questions, you actually have to reset. There's a reset button within the Turning Point tab, the responses, because it will save the student responses from the previous lecture. So if you just want to go back and look at the graphs that are within the PowerPoint, you can do that. But if you want to reuse that slide deck, it's important to note you have to reset the responses back to 0 so that they're not recorded or they don't show up for the next time you use that slide deck.
So I have one question that came to me, Jasmine, maybe you can field that, is that someone can't see the instructor side of Turning Point when they go to register. I would say just make sure on the mcgill.ca/polling, there's a column on the right that you follow the instructions as an instructor of getting in and setting up the course that's there. Jasmine, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, this is actually, I had a question about this after our last polling session. It's something that happens to me too. If you do register as a student, sometimes then when you go to register as an instructor, it's going to automatically bring you to the student page of Turning Point. There should be a little icon, a little profile icon in the right hand corner that you click on that you can toggle between a student view and an instructor view. If you can't see that right away, there's this, it's a funny trick, but it works for everybody. In the URL, it's going to say student dot Turning Point Technology, something like that. Just change student to instructor and go to that URL, and it's going to bring you to your instructor page. And then you should be able to toggle with within the page at the, on that little icon. So there's one, can I use Turning Point in other McGill contexts outside of a formal course, for example, training residents at McGill in clinical settings? Did you answer that, Adam? I don't think you did. Yes, you can, as long as the students have McGill emails, or the residents have McGill emails.
Yeah, exactly. So that our license is what's been purchased for the whole university. It's restricted to McGill. So you have to be part of McGill and have a McGill email address to log in to be able to respond. Mm-hmm. So Monica says, you know, if we open Turning Point before we open our PowerPoint, can we use it for any presentation we give? Yeah, I mean, the whole intent of Turning Point is that once you actually add slides to your session using Turning Point, it sort of enables it for polling. If you, for example, send it to somebody that doesn't have Turning Point, what it's going to show is basically a static slide. It's going to say, well, here's the question, here are the answers, but any of the interactive stuff won't work unless you have Turning Point installed. So it's basically what's Turning Point's doing is it's inserting special slides in your PowerPoint deck that allow you to do this kind of interactivity, but it doesn't make your PowerPoint you know, incompatible with anybody else. It just means that when you send it to somebody who doesn't have Turning Point, they can't really do anything with it. It just shows the actual a slide that's there. So Turning Point makes things interactive, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if they were to give a presentation with that slide deck with the Turning Point slide and they didn't have Turning Point, it would just show up as a normal text question. Nobody can interact with it, but it'll still be there. Like the slide won't disappear.
And that's what's nice is that you can still share your deck with other people who are doing things, and you can basically add the slides in and make it interactive kind of when you're done editing the PowerPoint as an example, or even as you're editing the PowerPoint. So it's really nice is you're not corrupting or messing up your PowerPoint slides in any way. It's basically just inserting a special slide, that's all. Mm-hmm. Other questions that that all of you have about the session or anything like that? No, Danielle, so the question being is that if you already have PowerPoint, you want to add slides, all you do is you open Turning Point, which opens PowerPoint with the menu, and you open your existing PowerPoint presentation and add slides into that, and that's it. You don't have to copy things from elsewhere or anything like that. It basically, Turning Point is really just a plugin for existing PowerPoint, and it allows you to do anything with the existing PowerPoint slides you already have. Mm-hmm. They don't need to do anything new or anything else. And you can't exactly export the polling slides from Turning Point, but you can export the results and the information from there. So if you're sort of moving, you know, let's say a slide from one PowerPoint deck to another, you'll have to copy it from one to another. It's basically just like any other kind of slide you have in PowerPoint. Mm-hmm. And thanks, Francis. And there was a great suggestion earlier of next time we'll send an email in advance to try to get you all set up in advance. That's a great idea and definitely something we can look at doing in the future. We wanted to give you a little bit of the impression of what it's like to run on the fly, because a lot of your students might end up doing that. So there are a couple of steps, and you'll notice that it can be a little difficult to get things going really quickly. But as you can see here, even with that, most everybody were able to get up and running. So we're definitely confident that this is something that you can do with your students in advance and have that available that you can experiment with. We would, like all of our other technologies, we would highly recommend that you try this out. Run a session with some friends, run a session with with other students that you might have, or with a colleague, or even try it out yourself, because you can actually just use your own device to answer your own questions if you sign in. So that's something that you can do as a test. Yeah, so I'm just looking at any other questions that are here that need responding. Anything, Jasmine, you see?
No, nothing new. Just a question on if our multiple webinars recordings will be available, or if we're going to end up only with one. Right now, we're
Everything's
doing all of them because we do have different types of questions come in at the end of each one. So all three will be available.
Yeah. So if you're really keen, you can watch the same thing 3 times with different questions that intersperse. We definitely don't do exactly the same wording every time. So hopefully it's engaging enough that you could watch more than once. But again, that's up to you. We also have, again, don't forget those resources that are underneath each webinar. That's where a lot of the links will be that are discussed, and anything presented here that I've posted in the chat or Jasmine's posted will also be there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And yes, Monica, that is a great way if you want to watch it. One thing you can do on YouTube when you watch the recording is you can actually speed it up. If you want to watch us on double time and skip through things, you can easily do that and move to things like questions and stuff like that. So that's good. And I'm glad, Hamid, that the session cleared some things up for you. Again, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to look at the recordings and resources. And if you have a question or concern or problem, just email IT support at mcgill.ca. I'm just going to put that in the chat there. If you have any question, you can send to them. They are well versed in using Turning Point. They can help you with any kind of troubleshooting and installation or anything like that. And if there are any questions that you have about creating slides or anything like that, they'll escalate it up to the teams that we have to be able to help. And so I'll get that page for you again. The webinars page that we have, this webinars page has everything, all the links to all of the recordings, all the links to all the resources, everything is there. So if you're ever stuck, you can watch the recordings, download the slides, click on the resources, look at the resource documents we talk about. It's all there for you. Great. Any other questions before we close our session for today? No? All right. Well, great. Well, again, thank you for attending. This was great. It was wonderful to have all of you here. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and hope you really are able to get started and get engaged with Polling at McGill. So thanks for coming.
Thanks so much, everyone.